Wrestling fans. Here's a 1997 year in review issue and more from Dave Meltzer. January 12, 1998 Wrestling Observer Newsletter. Mike Tyson WrestleMania hype begins and much more. By Observer staff. Google Plus Mike Tyson WrestleMania hype, NJPW Tokyo Dome show with Riki Choshu retirement, 1997 year in review. There was a tremendous amount of mainstream media conjecture stemming from the WWF's announcement that they were negotiating for Mike Tyson to be a part of WrestleMania. The appearance of Don King doing a taped interview on the January 5th Raw signifies that there has to be some sort of an agreement between the two sides already reached. Exactly what that entails, and what significance it will play, more of a question, and one with no answers at present. The basic belief is that Tyson is going to wind up as a referee for one of the main events on the March 29th Mania show from the Fleet Center in Boston. However, while exact figures aren't available, Tyson is not doing this at a bargain basement price. WCW, which basically stole the Dennis Rodman idea last year from the WWF, which had planned to use Rodman first as Goldust manager and then to set up the two as a tag team, was interested in Tyson if the deal wasn't solidified. Dr. Harvey Schiller, who oversees WCW operations for Turner, was talking with people at the Georgia Dome about negotiations for Oscar de la Hoya to appear with WCW, looking like they were falling through and that the company was interested in trying to get Tyson. However, sources close to the situation claim the price Tyson and King have negotiated with WWF may be out of WCW's league. It is clear that King's interest is doing Mania is to make money with Tyson, who is currently banned from boxing, on a show which in the past has done some tremendous pay-per-view buy rates. With the proliferation of pay-per-view shows, the WrestleMania name has meant less and less, to the point that with no outside celebrity involvement in 1997 and a weak main event when it came to mainstream drawing power, there were 5 other pro wrestling shows that did as many or more buys than the traditional jewel of the wrestling year. Again, to speculate on what Tyson will mean depends a lot on the role he's in and how frequently he'll be used. It is believed that both Tyson and King will make appearances on WWF Raw telecasts, perhaps with Tyson appearing as early as January 19th in Fresno, and certainly just out of curiosity, Tyson's first televised appearances should noticeably help the ratings, but that isn't a guarantee because Rodman's presence on Nitro didn't make a difference in the ratings. From there it depends on storyline and the public and the media's reaction. His appearance will garner tremendous media attention at the beginning, probably more negative than positive, but it will get the WWF name out. WWF is attempting to build this year's WrestleMania around using sullied, soiled and sleazy celebrities, which is a tactic that will only make wrestling's image as a whole even worse than it was, but that's the direction WWF has been going for months to begin with. WCW gained valuable points when it comes to perception through using Rodman, and to a much lesser extent, Kevin Green. Reggie White in hindsight really didn't mean a thing, because Green was so enthusiastic in promoting his involvement and putting over pro wrestling. Tyson is the biggest draw in the history of pay-per-view, but that drawing power is to see him in a fight, and not be a referee, or participate in a worked farce of a match. And nobody really knows how much of that major drawing power is still intact after his last match, although no doubt there will be curiosity drawing power and tons of media attention if he's involved as a participant in a match. If the WWF is able to sell the idea to enough of the public that Tyson's match will or might be real, and there is 0% chance King would allow Tyson's drawing power and physical health for his eventual return to boxing to be risked in anything but a 100% controlled environment, even though the WWF would gain an incredible boost for itself, to an extent the entire industry, and turn Ken Shamrock in particular into possibly the biggest star in the entire industry if it could put together a mixed match between the two, he'll mean a lot. Just as a ref, questionable. You'd think the wrestlers involved in a match he'd ref would get a publicity rub and become stars out of it. And with Tyson's major heel image, King can work with Vince McMahon to put Tyson in a babyface situation to soften his image, at least among some people, which might help grease the skids for his return to boxing where the real money is. Hogan's initial mainstream stardom, he was already a super drawing card in pro wrestling but not a name outside pro wrestling, came from the rub off Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper. However, we all thought Bam Bam Bigelow would become a mainstream star in the Lawrence Taylor angle, and even though the WWF couldn't have done a better angle and Bigelow couldn't have played his role better, the fact is Bigelow didn't achieve the stardom from it that everyone both internally and externally expected. As far as what Tyson's involvement would mean in regard to his reinstatement to boxing, according to Mark Ratner of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which suspended Tyson from boxing in the wake of the Holyfield fight, they consider Tyson being involved in pro wrestling as being no different from Tyson making an appearance on The Larry King Show or doing a skit on Saturday Night Live. No matter what role he plays, he'll have no impact on his boxing future. Tyson was at one point expected to do Nitro on June 30th from Las Vegas and just do a cameo with an NWO t-shirt as a heavily promoted big surprise. Kurt Hennig and Raven, who both debuted on that show, were the planned teased big surprises that would appear earlier in the show leading to Tyson, after the Evander Holyfield fight. However, due to the fallout from the fight, Turner Broadcasting wanted nothing to do with Tyson, nor likely at that point would Tyson have wanted to still do it. But at that point the Turner higher-ups were leery of being associated with boxing in general. Michael Moore was at the Vegas Nitro show in the front row, and the higher-ups and Turner ordered no shots of Moore to air on the wrestling television show. Over the weekend, WCW was in serious negotiations with De La Hoya, the current biggest drawing card on pay-per-view, about doing a referee gig on a pay-per-view show. The idea proposed was for De La Hoya to referee a match with Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr., to play up the Latin angle, and try to build more of a Latin base to the WCW crowd and give Guerrero and Mysterio Jr. the chance for the media rub, particularly since they'd likely have a spectacular match which could shock people with their athletic ability that would normally be inclined to run the event down. However, De La Hoya's people are carefully controlling his image as the Golden Boy and felt participation in pro wrestling would sully that image, and at this point the deal looks unlikely. All this leads to the situation with Hulk Hogan. According to both the WWF and WCW camps, rumors about a Hogan jump don't appear to be taken seriously by either side. Within wrestling, nobody appears to be reacting as if there is any real strong possibility of it happening, although the rumors are everywhere and both sides will admit there is a very slim possibility based on circumstances totally out of the control of either company. There is truth to the idea that Hogan's proposed television series on TNT based on his recent movie didn't materialize, and that he may be shopping around the idea of doing a TV show. If USA Network were to be interested in picking up the show, it could result in Hogan switching to the wrestling company that's on USA. There doesn't appear to be anything serious going in that direction to the point either side is preparing itself for the possibility of Hogan being either leaving or coming. Hogan has more potential big money matches on the horizon in WCW than WWF, and pretty much everyone accepts that in WCW he's going to be the perennial world champion since Sting isn't a long-term answer with the belt, trading it with different challengers along the way. In WWF, where house show business is far more important to overall financial health, it's unlikely they would put their title belt on someone who won't work house shows, although never say never when it comes to the chance of getting Hogan back because he's still the biggest pay-per-view draw in the industry. The idea of creating a 3-hour Monday night block using the Hogan show as a lead-in for Raw sounds interesting on the surface, except from a television standpoint it's more questionable. Walker, Texas Ranger is the most popular series on USA, and they aren't likely to tinker with the time slot of their most successful series for a television show which more likely than not will flop. When TNT tried to use Hogan's old television show as a lead-in for Nitro, the ratings were roughly half of what USA does with Walker as a lead-in for Raw. Still, anyone who saw Hogan surgically attach himself to Rodman's hip from everything he learned from 1984-85 recognizes that depending on media reaction, Tyson's hip may be the one to attach himself to in 1998. The final matches of the career of Riki Choshu and the retirement announcement by Antonio Inoki drew a sellout 65,000 fans for New Japan's traditional one-quarter show at the Tokyo Dome. The show, which sold out well ahead of time, was described as a decent but not great show, featuring several upsets and headlined by Choshu's protege, Kensuke Sasaki, retaining the IWGP Heavyweight title, pinning Keiji Muto in 25-18. It was the second largest crowd in the history of pro wrestling in Japan, behind only the Keiji Muto vs. Nobuhiko Takada match in 1995 and being equal to the Takada vs. Shinya Hashimoto match in 1996. With tickets scaled higher than any New Japan Dome show in history except the Muto-Takada match, it was likely, at least when it comes to yen, the second biggest gate in the history of pro wrestling anywhere in the world. As reported in a front-page newspaper story on December 27, Inoki did announce his retirement with his final match on April 4 at the Tokyo Dome. Nikkei Sports, in its headline story on the morning of the card, started publicizing Inoki's next angle, which is creating his own NWO-type organization within New Japan. And actually the NWO angle was originated with New Japan 15 years ago, with Choshu's Ishigun group feuding with Sekigun for the New Japan office, called the World Martial Arts Organization. As was reported here months ago, Inoki's idea is to form a group of shooters to feud with New Japan, using Yoshiaki Fujiwara, Satoru Sayama, perhaps Naoya Ogawa or even Nobuhiko Takada. The belief within wrestling is that Inoki will retire as a wrestler but perhaps make comebacks as a martial artist, and that even at the age of 55, this won't be his final match. In Inoki's farewell speech, he said that martial arts have become very popular, and even mentioned the name of Rickson Gracie as helping to popularize it. He talked about wanting to promote martial arts shows in China, Europe, the United States and India, and said that he wanted the fans to decide who his final opponent would be. He did bring up the name Hulk Hogan as a potential final opponent, although that would probably be based on Hogan's willingness to put Inoki over, which Hogan may be more willing to do now than in years past. That brings up the question of WCW timing, because WCW probably wouldn't want its world champion, if Hogan were to have the title in April, do a job in another organization, even though today that means less than ever before. To show how little it means today, WCW had its Cruiserweight champion, Ultimo Dragon, lost to New Japan's IWGP Junior Heavyweight champion, Shinjiro Otani, in the best match on the Dome show. To WCW, it was more important to have multiple title changes on the Nitro in Baltimore coming off the Porsche show the previous week, full well knowing the result would be its champion was going to Japan and putting over their champion a few days later. There was also a final ceremony for Choshu, 46, who wrestled 5 very short matches, winning 4 of them. Choshu received presents and flowers from his 3 children, from magazines and newspapers, and from longtime wrestling rivals Tatsumi Fujinami and Seiji Sakaguchi, along with Sasaki, and they rang the bell 10 times to commemorate the end of his 24-and-a-half-year pro career. 1. Kendo Kashin Tokumitsu Ishizawa beat Koji Kanemoto in 12:01 with a flying armbar off the top rope. The finish was said to have been spectacular. Kanemoto may have injured his knee during the match, which was said to have been good. 2. Otani retained the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, pinning Dragon Yoshihiro Asai in 17:06 after 2 Dragon suplexes. From all reports, this was said to have been the best match on the show. 3. Yuji Nagata upset Hiroyoshi Tenzan Hwang killed Choi in 11:33 using the Nagata lock for the submission after Tenzan missed a headbutt off the top rope and Nagata hit him with 2 Enzoi gyros. This was a one-shot deal for Nagata, but in beating Tenzan, it's supposed to signal to Japanese fans that when he returns full-time, scheduled to be this summer, that he'll now be a top star. Match itself was said to have been disappointing. 4. Tatsumi Fujinami and Osamu Nishimura beat Satoshi Kojima and Manabu Nakanishi in 12:39 when Nishimura pinned Kojima using a Northern Lights suplex. The story in this match was the same as the previous bout. Trying to get over that, Nishimura is now a star, scoring a pin on Kojima, who is one of New Japan's hottest young wrestlers. Nishimura came to the ring wearing an NWO t-shirt, but during the match they didn't tease any problems between him and Fujinami. Nishimura, who is being groomed for an IWGP heavyweight title match in February in Sapporo, didn't get over even though he's being given the push, and it was said to have been a bad match. After the match, Fujinami issued a challenge to Jumbo Tsuruta. I think we're a few years late on that match. 5. Riki Choshu Mitsuo Yoshida pinned Kazuyuki Fujita in 3:57 after a back suplex and a lariat. 6. Choshu pinned Yutaka Yoshi in 1:42 after a lariat. 7. Choshu pinned Tatsuhito Takaiwa in 1:21 using a lariat and using the Scorpion Deathlock for the submission. It was a real waste for Takaiwa to do such a short match, and he didn't do any of his trademark moves. 8. Takashi Iizuka Takayuki Iizuka made Choshu submit to the Akira Sengatame heel hook in 2:02 upon reversing the Scorpion. After the match, Iizuka said that he was happy to beat Choshu but said that it was because Choshu was tired. 9. Choshu pinned Jushin Liger Keiichi Yamada in 5:09 of the final match of his career. Liger jumped Choshu early using a Kopo kick and a Northern Lights bomb. Liger also used a superplex off the top for a near fall. Choshu actually delivered a plancha, his first one of those in years. In the ring, Liger used a dragon screw and figure 4, but Choshu escaped. Choshu hit the lariat for a near fall and got a pin with the second lariat. The basic feeling on the 5-match series is that it was a disappointment because of how short all the matches went, but that it had super heat. 10. Don Frye upset Naoya Ogawa in 8:47, which shows how much New Japan is happy with Frye, since the original plan was if everything went perfect, Frye would be pushed until the Dome show where he'd put Ogawa over. Now Frye's first big job looks to be when he and Ogawa are rematched on the February 15th Budokan Hall main event. Frye was heavily booed coming out, managed by Brad Rheingans, and holding his 2 title belts from winning the UFC tournament and the Ultimate tournament. Ogawa dominated early using lots of judo whips and takedowns. Frye got a choke from behind but refused to break the hold on the ropes, which caused heavy booing. Ogawa made another comeback, but Frye cut him off, delivering a low blow and then putting him in a choke sleeper. With Ogawa not moving, the ref stopped the match and awarded it to Frye. After the match, Ogawa went crazy, attacking the ref, saying that he never submitted to the move and challenging Frye to a rematch. The work was said to have been decent considering both are rookies, but it had real good heat. 11. Shinya Hashimoto beat Dennis Lane, a no-name kickboxer who appeared on a K1 card a few years ago. This match was a disaster. At 134, Hashimoto tackled Lane, whose leg or knee went out, and he said he was injured and basically quit, which wasn't the planned finish. Fans booed this heavily. 12. Masahiro Chono pinned Shiro Koshinaka in 1505 after a Yakuza kick in Koshinaka's first match back after knee surgery. Said to have been a good match. 13. Sasaki pinned Muto in 25-18 after 2 Northern Lights bombs. The last 5 minutes were said to have been real good, but in the early portion, Muto was said to have worked a shortcut Hogan-style heel match. Once Muto got going, he did all his fast moves and made the match. After the show, Sasaki talked about having beaten Hashimoto to win the title on August 31st, and then both Chono and Muto in title defenses, who were the 3 biggest stars in New Japan. He said it was time for younger wrestlers to get title shots. Most of the top matches on the show aired as part of a 2-hour World Pro Wrestling special on tape delay later that evening. World Championship Wrestling once again set another company attendance record, drawing 23,058 paid, 26,773 total, and $510,610 to its January 5 Nitro taping at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. Several times during the broadcast, announcer Tony Schiavone, using his Monsonian double major, broadcasting and exaggerated crowd estimates, referred to the crowd as being 30,000. The gate figure was the second highest in company history, trailing only Starrcade 8 days earlier. The paid attendance broke the Starrcade record by about 7,000 tickets, and building total broke the record set on June 9 in Boston of 18,003 in the building. The company also set its merchandise record on the show, although we don't have the figure. It was an uneventful television show except for a tremendous confrontation with Ric Flair and Bret Hart to build up their pay-per-view main event on January 24 and a teased NWO split, designed more to build ratings for the debut of Thunder on January 8. After the show went off the air, there was an impromptu tag team match with Sting and Lex Luger versus Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, which ended with Sting having Hogan in the Scorpion and Luger having Savage in the rack for a double submission finish. The match was said to have been crummy, but it sent everyone home happy, as there was some disappointment noticeable in the crowd when Michael Buffer came in the ring and Luger and Savage went out for what appeared to be the main event due to the lack of interesting antics underneath. The only matches known at press time for the January 24 sold-out pay-per-view from Dayton are Flair vs. Hart, Larry Zbyszko vs. Scott Hall, Luger vs. Savage, and The Giant vs. Kevin Nash, and one would presume a cruiserweight title defense by Juventud Guerrera, who was scheduled to win the belt on the first Thunder taping from Ultimo Dragon. Due to New Year's, ratings for any of the weekend television shows weren't available at press time. A few updates regarding Kevin Nash, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and Eric Bischoff. As mentioned last week, there was surprisingly little concern by either the wrestlers or management in either WWF, where he has some friends, or WCW regarding Kevin Nash's health, with the belief being virtually universal that he may have been stressed out, and sources close to him say he was in the hospital on December 25, but that he had made no bones to anyone that he didn't want to work a program with the Giant, and it's felt the latter more than the former is why he wasn't there. Nash had been scheduled against Giant originally on every pay-per-view starting with Halloween Havoc in November. He missed that one due to undergoing knee surgery at a time when he did have a legitimate knee injury, but whether he truly needed surgery was questioned. He missed World War III except doing the End of Battle Royal cameo, because he got the singles match cancelled after it had already been advertised. And he missed Starrcade. Nash returned to WCW on January 5, but the extent of his involvement in the show was walking from a limo with a glare into the building, and showing up at the end of the show to clothesline Randy Savage and argue to Hulk Hogan. He told everyone that he was feeling fine. He apparently agreed to work the January 24 pay-per-view show against Giant, although it was never mentioned on the television show. There is no question Hunter Hearst Helmsley suffered a legitimate knee injury working with Dude Love in Hamilton, ONT, on December 28, the day before he was scheduled to drop the European title to Owen Hart. He showed up and his knee was clearly dislocated and badly swollen, and he's been out of action ever since. The diagnosis was a detached patella and a partially torn meniscus. He was scheduled for an examination with Dr. Jim Andrews and an MRI on January 6 to determine the full extent of damage. At press time, and this could change depending upon the results of the MRI, they were booking under the impression Helmsley would be out of action until the Royal Rumble. The biggest house show of the weekend for WWF, on January 4 in San Antonio before a sellout at the Freeman Coliseum, was scheduled as Undertaker and Steve Austin vs. Helmsley and Michaels. It was changed to Undertaker and Austin beating The Rock and D. Lo Brown and Michaels pinning Owen Hart to retain the WWF title. In other Corpus Christi and Austin, Texas, Undertaker, Austin and Michaels didn't wrestle, so the main events were Hart and Ken Shamrock beating The Rock and Brown. We have no word on what the situation will be for the house shows over the next 2 weekends in which Helmsley was scheduled to headline. The January 10th Madison Square Garden show was scheduled to be headlined by Undertaker and Austin versus Michaels and Helmsley in a cage match, and the belief at press time, although not official, was that Undertaker and Load would face Michaels and New Age Outlaws in a cage, and that Austin and one of Mick Foley's personalities would face Rock and Brown, and they would add a Jeff Jarrett title defense to the undercard. As for the other major shows, in particular Pittsburgh, Anaheim, and Las Vegas, before the Rumble in San Jose, we don't have official word other than they would ask Michaels to wrestle in some of the cities he wasn't booked to take Helmsley's place, and they would try and add some stars to the undercard, and obviously the announced lineups would have to be changed. Bischoff was also said at various times to have suffered a blown-out knee, a broken kneecap, or even a broken bone in his leg in training for the match with Larry Zbyszko. He has been on television showing no sign of a limp every week. On the January 5th Nitro, after doing an interview, he jumped off the apron in a manner that someone with a bad knee, let alone a broken bone, would never do. Since we aren't doing a double issue, the material we usually put in the double issue is going to be broken up into 3 issues. This week we are going to run down the major shows of 1997. Next week will be the awards issue. And the following week will be the rundown of title histories for 1997, the major offices. The most interesting thing to note when it comes to big shows from 1997 is that when it comes to traditional pro wrestling, out of 27 pay-per-view shows from WWF, WCW and ECW, only 9 of them were any good and none since September. During a period when competition should elevate the product, it has when it comes to less wrestling and more angles on television, but when it comes to the pay-per-view and house shows, that hasn't been the case. Now more than at any time in the past, house shows are something that the stars try and get out of doing, and all but the youngest, hungriest or a few dedicated types use them to largely go through the motions, knowing having there is no emphasis from the company, and having good or bad matches doesn't affect your stock because the fans don't remember, because cities are run so infrequently, and the promoters don't care at all. Both WWF and WCW only had 4 good shows out of 12 pay-per-view shows based on readers' reaction. And if you look back at these shows, it isn't a case of so much product making standards too high for reader satisfaction. If anything, based on the shows and poll results and comparisons to prior years, standards in some ways are easier than ever. Before 1997 started, we figured that competition would result in better shows and better matches, and really, the opposite was the case, even though 1997, from a newsworthy standard of strange out-of-the-ring occurrences, was the most interesting year probably in the history of the business. In 1996, WWF put on 9 good pay-per-view shows out of 12, while WCW put on 4 out of 10 based on reader responses, and for whatever reason, my opinion is that as a general rule of thumb people judge WWF on easier standards because equally bad WWF and WCW shows will often get thumbs in the middles on WWF and thumbs downs on WCW. ECW, which is often judged by the easiest standard of all because it caters more to hardcore fans, still only managed to put on 1 good pay-per-view show out of 3. From a business standpoint, WCW's business across the board showed huge increases. We'll deal with attendance, a gigantic increase, and television ratings in future issues. Actually, television ratings did not improve much, if at all, as for every new viewer on Monday, with Nitro averaging a 3.2 in 1996 and a 3.7 in 1997. There was an equal and possibly greater corresponding loss of viewers over the weekend for the product, as the weekend ratings on TBS have never been lower, but the company showed a huge increase in both buys and revenue. WWF, on the other hand, while having a strong year at the gate, did improve its television ratings, but that was on the strength of increasing the weekend numbers. Raw averaged a 2.7 in 1996 and a 2.7 in 1997, decreased over the course of the year when it came to pay-per-view buys, but due to increasing the price of the B shows from $19.95 to $29.95, it showed a sizable revenue increase overall, which was probably the key factor in putting the company on its most solid financial footing in several years. Any predictions for 1998 are foolish. All we can say for sure is that it will be another year of change. The key issues at the beginning of the year are WCW's Thursday television show, WWF's usage of Mike Tyson, and the ensuing media publicity, both good and bad, that will result from it, how far the companies can push the envelope without even more serious fan problems resulting, a lack of discipline that has resulted in an environment where titles will less and less be won and lost in the ring, and clean victories in main events will be something reserved for Japan and Mexico. 1997 record book. The biggest shows of the year. Domestic pay-per-view events. WWF Royal Rumble, January 19th, San Antonio Alamo Dome. Attendance, 60,525, 48,014 paid. Livegate was $480,013. Estimated buy rate/revenue, 0.7/$2.18 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 100, 42.4%, 92, 39.0%, 44, 18.6%. Best match, Royal Rumble 70, Shawn Michaels vs. Sid 45. Worst match, Canek and Hector Garza and Pero Aguayo vs. Heavy Metal and Jerry Estrada and Fuerza Guerrera 66, Undertaker vs. Vader 29. Highlights, Shawn Michaels regained the WWF title for a second time, pinning Psycho Sid in 1349 in his hometown, 2 stars. Steve Austin, who had actually been eliminated behind both refs, got back in the ring and threw out Bret Hart in 50-29 to win the annual Royal Rumble, 3 stars. An attempt to forge an alliance with AAA in Mexico, which wound up being short-lived. Vader pinned Undertaker in 1319 due to outside help from Paul Bearer, 1 1/4 stars. Hunter Hearst Helmsley retained the IC title, pinning Goldust in 1650, 2 stars. WCW NWO sold out, January 25, Cedar Rapids 5 Seasons Center. Attendance, 5,120. Sellout. Livegate, $68,209. Est. Buy rate/revenue, 0.47/$1.37 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 4, 1.4%, 276, 97.2%, 4, 1.4%. Best match, 6 vs. Eddie Guerrero 157, Chris Jericho vs. Masahiro Chono 21. Worst match, Hulk Hogan vs. The Giant 141, Big Bubba vs. Hugh Morris 8. Highlights, generally considered as among the worst pay-per-view events of all time. Main event saw WCW champion Hulk Hogan and the Giant go to a non-decision in 11 minutes. When this match took place, it was considered almost a given to win worst match of the year, but the year had some incredibly bad major matches, Minnesota, and 1/2 star. Eddie Guerrero retained the U.S. title, beating 6 in 1348, 4 stars. Steiner supposedly won the WCW tag titles from Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in 1443 when ref Randy Anderson came out of the stands to count the fall after Nick Patrick was bumped. The decision was reversed on television the next day, 2 1/4 stars. Between the beauty contest and the announcing, it more than made up in infamy for the fact that a lot of shows, including this year, have actually presented worse wrestling. UFC 12, Judgment Day, February 7, Dothan Civic Center. Attendance, 3,100. Sellout. Livegate, $0. Est. Buy rate/revenue, 0.55/$896,000. Thumbs up/down/middle, 132, 88.0%, 8, 5.3%, 10, 6.7%. Best match, Yoshiki Takahashi vs. Felipe Ismail 101, Mark Coleman vs. Dan Severn 7. Worst match, Jerry Bollander vs. Nick Sanzo 72, Mark Coleman vs. Dan Severn 8. Highlights, after a move literally the day before after losing a court fight when the New York State Athletic Commission, spurred on by a series of negative articles in the New York Times, decided to rewrite the rule book as a legal technicality to force UFC out of the state when a law passed specifically legalizing the event. The event moved to Dothan, Alabama, where all the tickets were given away because of such a last-minute deal. The show was headlined by Mark Coleman capturing the UFC heavyweight title from Dan Severn, with a headlock choke in 259, and the UFC debut of 19-year-old Brazilian Vitor Belfort, who captured the heavyweight tournament. Jerry Bollander won the UFC's first ever under 200 pounds tournament. WWF Final 4, February 16, Chattanooga Arena. Attendance, 6,399. Livegate, $76,762. Est. Buy rate/revenue, 0.5/$1.04 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 123, 70.7%, 11, 6.3%, 40, 23.0%. Best match, Final 4 132. Worst match, Farouk and Crush and Savio Vega vs. Flash Funk and Goldust and Bart Gunn 83, Rocky Maivia vs. Hunter Hearst Helmsley 17. Highlights, Bret Hart captured the WWF title for the 4th time, winning a Final 4 match for the title vacated 3 days earlier by Shawn Michaels in 24:05 over Steve Austin, Vader and Undertaker when Undertaker was distracted by the eliminated Austin, allowing Hart to cradle him from behind in an excellent headliner, 4 1/4 stars. Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith retained the WWF tag titles, losing via DQ against Phil LaFon and Doug Furnas in 10:30, 3¼ stars. Rocky Maivia retained the IC title, pinning Hunter Hearst Helmsley in 12:39, 1¾ stars. WCW Super Brawl, February 23, San Francisco Cow Palace. Attendance, 13,324. Sellout, 12,145 paid. Live gate, $192,000. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.75 $2.20 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 151, 84.8%, 10, 5.6%, 17, 9.6%. Best match, Conan and La Parka and Villano 4 vs. Juventud Guerrera and Cyclope and Supercolo 61, Dean Malenko vs. 635. Worst match, Hulk Hogan vs. Roddy Piper 87, Harlem Heat vs. Faces of Fear vs. Public Enemy 34. Highlights, Hulk Hogan retained the WCW title, beating Roddy Piper in 10:52 due to outside interference from Randy Savage, 1¼ stars. The Giant and Lex Luger beat Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in another apparent tag team title change that was overruled the next day in 8:53. Luger was injured as an angle, and although advertised, was not allowed to participate, so Giant went at it alone. Luger then showed up, tagged in, and racked Nash for the win, but it was overruled since Luger wasn't medically allowed to be there, 3½ stars. Eddie Guerrero retained the U.S. title, beating Chris Jericho, 3¼ stars. Prince Iaukea retained the WCW TV title, pinning Rey Mysterio Jr., 3¼ stars. Syxx won the WCW Cruiserweight title from Dean Malenko in 11:57 due to distraction in the finish from Guerrero, 3¼ stars. WCW Uncensored, March 16, North Charleston Coliseum. Attendance, 9,295, 7,640 paid. Live gate, $101,184. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.89 $2.61 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 87, 39.7%, 95, 43.4%, 37, 16.9%. Best match, Dean Malenko vs. Eddie Guerrero 114, Harlem Heat vs. Public Enemy 32. Worst match, 3-team elimination match 97, Glacier vs. Mortis 38. Highlights, a triangle match, which appeared to be booked on acid, saw Team NWO of Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan beat Team Piper, Chris Benoit and Piper and Jeff Jarrett and Steve McMichael, and Team WCW, The Giant and Lex Luger and Scott Steiner, as they took Rick Steiner out of the picture with an angle earlier in the show, in 1922 when it came down to Hogan and Luger, but Savage interfered, causing Luger to get pinned. After the match, Dennis Rodman, who was actually the focal point of the match to the point Hogan was surgically attached to his hip for photo ops from all the media, ended up spray-painted NWO on Luger's back, 1 star. As became the WCW pattern throughout the year, the poor main event was backed by a strong undercard as Dean Malenko won the U.S. title from Eddie Guerrero in 1914, 3¾ stars, Ultimo Dragon pinned Psychosis in 13:17, 3½ stars, Harlem Heat beat Public Enemy in a tornado match, 2½ stars, and a disappointing match where Prince Iaukea retained the TV title, beating Rey Mysterio Jr. in 13:41, 1½ star. WWF WrestleMania, March 23, Chicago Rosemont Horizon. Attendance, 18,197. Sellout, 16,467 paid. Live gate, $837,150. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.77 $2.46 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 206, 78.9%, 38, 14.6%, 14, 6.5%. Best match, Bret Hart vs. Steve Austin 253. Worst match, Four Corners Tag Match 84, Rocky Maivia vs. Sultan 63. Highlights, one of probably the 2 or 3 greatest matches in the history of WrestleMania was the Bret Hart win over Steve Austin in an I Quit match with Ken Shamrock as ref in 22:05. The win also featured a double turn, Hart into a heel and Austin into a babyface, the latter becoming arguably the hottest star in the business for the remainder of the year and inarguably the biggest merchandise seller. Hart won, but Austin never submitted, 5 stars star. Hart-Austin shared double co-billing with the WWF title match where Undertaker won the title from Psycho Sid in 21:19, 1¼ stars. In a street fight, Legion of Doom and Ahmed Johnson beat Farouk and Crush and Savio Vega in 10:45, 1¼ stars. Extreme Fighting Championships 4, March 28, Des Moines Veterans Memorial Auditorium. Attendance, 750. Live Gate. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.12 $172,000. Thumbs up / down / middle, 101, 98.1%, 2, 1.9%, 0, 0.0%. Best match, Kevin Jackson vs. John Lober 39, Kenny Monday vs. John Lewis 32. Worst match, Gary Myers vs. Tom Glanville 68. Highlights, arguably the single best NHB show to date, but for financial reasons the end of the EFC promotion which folded a few weeks later. The highlights were the NHB debuts of 2 gold medal winning Olympic wrestlers, Kevin Jackson, 1992 gold at 181 pounds, and Kenny Monday, 1988 gold at 163. Jackson beat John Lober in 1/12 of the second round via submission, while Monday knocked out John Lewis at 4:09. In the main event, Maurice Smith retained his EFC title beating Murakami Kazunari in 4:20 with the single most devastating knockout punch in American NHB history. WCW Spring Stampede, April 6, Tupelo Coliseum. Attendance, 8,356 sellout, 7,428 paid. Live Gate, $107,115. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.58 / $1.75 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 10, 6.5%, 89, 57.8%, 55, 35.7%. Best match, Ultimo Dragon vs. Rey Mysterio Jr. 93, Diamond Dallas Page vs. Randy Savage 31. Worst match, Public Enemy vs. Jarrett and McMichael 57, 4 corners match 30. Highlights, another poor WCW pay-per-view, this time without the booking problems of the past, but also sans the good undercard wrestling for the most part. The pre-show hype built the card around a 4 corners match with Lex Luger, the Giant and Harlem Heat, where Giant basically gave Luger the win to earn a future WCW title shot in 1818 1 star, although the final position was given to Diamond Dallas Page's lift into superstardom when Randy Savage put him over in 1538 of a no DQ match, 3¼ stars. Dean Malenko retained the U.S. title going to a no contest with Chris Benoit in a match played with far too many run-ins, 3¼ stars. Prince Iaukea retained the TV title beating Steven Regal in 10:01, 1½ star, and won an excellent opening match with Rey Mysterio Jr. beating Ultimo Dragon in 14:55, 4¼ stars. ECW Barely Legal, April 13, Philadelphia ECW Arena. Attendance, 1,170 sellout. Live Gate, $66,000. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.26 $400,000. Thumbs up / down / middle, 283, 82.5%, 29, 8.5%, 31, 9.0%. Best match, Great Sasuke and Gran Hamada and Masato Yakashiji vs. Men's Teo and Dick Togo and Taka Michinoku 208, Terry Funk vs. Stevie Richards vs. Sandman 51. Worst match, Shane Douglas vs. Pitbull No. 2 195, Eliminators vs. Dudleys 21. Highlights, the long-awaited debut of ECW on pay-per-view is built around the first singles match between Sabu and Taz, and Terry Funk's quest to win the ECW title just before his 53rd birthday. Funk won a triangle match over Sandman and Stevie Richards, 4 stars, to earn his title shot where he beat Raven due to Tommy Dreamer's interference in 7:20, 3¼ stars. Taz beat Sabu in their first meeting doing the same double turn as in the Bret Hart-Steve Austin match in 17:49, 3¼ stars. Shane Douglas retained the TV title beating Pitbull No. 2 in 2043, 3/4 star. Eliminators regained the tag titles beating the Dudleys in 6:11, 2¾ stars. And in one of the best US matches of the year, Great Sasuke, who had just worked the previous night against Jushin Liger at the Tokyo Dome, and Gran Hamada and Masato Yakashiji beat Dick Togo and Men's Teo and Taka Michinoku in 16:55, 4½ stars. WWF Taker's Revenge, April 20th, Rochester War Memorial Auditorium. Attendance, 6,477 sellout. Live Gate, $87,414. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.5 $1.08 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 61, 36.5%, 81, 48.5%, 25, 15.0%. Best match, Bret Hart vs. Steve Austin 75, Undertaker vs. Mankind 56. Worst match, Jesse Jams vs. Rockabilly 94, Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith vs. Legion of Doom 14. Highlights: largely a forgettable show with 2 good main events, a nothing undercard, and 3 DQ finishes in 5 matches. Steve Austin beat Bret Hart via DQ in 21:09, 3 3/4 stars in the main event, while Undertaker pinned Mankind in 17:26 to retain the WWF title, 3 3/4 stars. Savio Vega beat Rocky Maivia via countout, so Maivia kept the IC title in 8:33, 3/4 star, and Legion of Doom beat tag champs Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith via DQ in 10:11, 3/4 star. WWF Cold Day in Hell, May 11th, Richmond Coliseum. Attendance: 9,381, sellout 7,681 paid. Live gate: $116,547. Est. Buy rate/revenue: 0.57/$1.27 million. Thumbs up/down/middle: 33 23.4%, 70 49.6%, 38 27.0%. Best match: Ken Shamrock vs. Vader 81, Undertaker vs. Steve Austin 46. Worst match: Ahmed Johnson vs. Nation of Domination 34, Jesse Jams vs. Rockabilly 27. Highlights: described as just another Sunday afternoon pay-per-view show that would be forgotten in a week, Undertaker pinned Steve Austin in 2006 to retain the WWF title using the tombstone after some distraction from Brian Pillman, 3 stars. Even more noteworthy on the show was the WWF in-ring debut of Ken Shamrock, who beat Vader with an ankle lock in 13:21, 3 1/4 stars. WCW Slamboree, May 18, Charlotte Independence Arena. Attendance: 9,643, sellout. Live gate: $167,705. Est. Buy rate/revenue: 0.60/$1.88 million. Thumbs up/down/middle: 112, 77.8%, 12, 8.3%, 20, 13.9%. Best match: Steve Regal vs. Ultimo Dragon 66, Roddy Piper and Ric Flair and Kevin Green vs. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in 650. Worst match: Steve McMichael vs. Reggie White 78, Glacier vs. Mortis 26. Highlights: the return of Ric Flair to the ring after being out of action for 8 months after rotator cuff surgery ended up with him teaming with Roddy Piper and local football hero Kevin Green to beat Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in 6 in a match that had more controversy before it took place because of Hulk Hogan's not doing the match in 6 being in the main event. Officially, Hall did the job via pin to Flair's figure 4 while Piper had Nash in the sleeper and Green and Powerslam 6 to give the fans a happy ending in a match that had great heat and emotion and overwhelming so-so wrestling. 2.5 stars. Future NFL Hall of Famer Reggie White made his pro wrestling debut, and unlike people like Green and Lawrence Taylor, White was a total embarrassment being in one of the worst matches of the year, losing to Steve McMichael in 15-17, -2 stars. In title matches, Steve Regal regained the WCW TV title from Ultimo Dragon in 1604, 3 3/4 stars, and Dean Malenko retained the U.S. title beating Jeff Jarrett due to outside interference from McMichael in 1503, 3 stars. UFC Ultimate Force, May 30th, Augusta, Richmond County Civic Center. Attendance: 5,100, 4,100 paid. Live gate. Est. Buy rate/revenue: 0.50/$897,000. Thumbs up/down/middle: 124, 96.1%, 4, 3.1%, 1, 0.8%. Best match: Tank Abbott vs. Vitor Belfort 48, Enson Inoue vs. Hoist Aldra 38. Worst match: Tito Ortiz vs. Wesley Alberton 14, Tony Halme vs. Randy Couture 13. Highlights: the myth of Tank Abbott fell to the reality of Vitor Belfort in just 53 seconds of the main event. U.S. National Greco-Roman champion Randy Couture debuted in NHB beating pro wrestler Tony Halme and Stephen Graham to capture the heavyweight tournament, while Pancrace's Guy Mesger won the under 200 division beating Cal State Bakersfield wrestler Tito Ortiz. WWF King of the Ring, June 8, Providence Civic Center. Attendance: 9,312. Live gate: $202,963. Est. Buy rate/revenue: 0.50/$1.59 million. Thumbs up/down/middle: 100, 66.7%, 29, 19.3%, 21, 14.0%. Best match: Shawn Michaels vs. Steve Austin 118, Mankind vs. Hunter Hearst Helmsley 35. Worst match: Goldust vs. Crush 42, Legion of Doom and Psycho Sid vs. Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith and Jim Neidhart 20. Highlights: Undertaker pinned Farouk in 1343 to retain the WWF title in a match better than it seemed on paper when distraction in the Nation of Domination caused Undertaker to use a tombstone to get the title, 2 1/4 stars. Shawn Michaels actually got louder cheers than Steve Austin in their double disqualification match at 22-29, 4 stars, while Hunter Hearst Helmsley captured the King of the Ring tournament that had been promised him 1 year earlier, beating Mankind in 1926 of the finals, 3 1/2 stars. WCW Great American Bash, June 15, Moline, Eel Mark of the Quad. Attendance, 9,613, 8,538 paid. Live Gate, $142,118. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.60 $1.88 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 41 30.8%, 52 39.1%, 40 30.1%. Best match, Ultimo Dragon vs. Psychosis 55, Diamond Dallas Page vs. Randy Savage 35. Worst match, Conan vs. Hugh Morris 44, Steve McMichael vs. Kevin Green 17. Highlights: Randy Savage pinned Diamond Dallas Page due to outside help from Scott Hall in a Wild Falls Count Anywhere Lights Out match main event in 1656, 3 3/4 stars. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall retained the WCW tag titles, beating Ric Flair and Roddy Piper when Flair was fighting with 6 backstage, leaving Piper by himself in 10:02, 2 1/4 stars. In yet another battle of football players, Kevin Green pinned Steve McMichael in 9:21, 2 stars. Green showed incredible potential as a wrestler, being able to work a match that good with McMichael, which most seasoned top stars were unable to do. In a women's title versus retirement match, Akira Hokuto beat Medusa in 11:41, 3 stars, and Medusa never has resurfaced in WCW despite still being under contract. WWF Canadian Stampede, July 6, Calgary Saddledome. Attendance, 12,151, 10,974 paid. Live Gate, $229,598 Canadian. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.59 $1.32 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 256, 99.6%, 0.4%, 0.0%. Best match, Bret and Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart and Brian Pillman and Davey Boy Smith vs. Goldust and Legion of Doom and Steve Austin and Ken Shamrock 169, Great Sasuke vs. Taka Michinoku 42. Worst match, Godwins vs. Blackjacks, pregame show, 74, Undertaker vs. Vader 45. Highlights: for a show that had little interest coming in and only 4 matches, it was arguably not only the best pay-per-view show of the year but the best in the history of the WWF. All 4 matches were good to excellent with the Hart Foundation, Bret and Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith and Brian Pillman and Jim Neidhart, as unbelievable babyfaces in Calgary despite being portrayed as heels on television, beating Steve Austin and Legion of Doom and Ken Shamrock and Goldust when Owen pinned Austin in 24-31, 4 1/4 stars. Undertaker retained the WWF title, pinning Vader in 12:39, 3 1/4 stars. In a match designed to set up Great Sasuke as the star of the WWF's light heavyweight division, it was Taka Michinoku, in doing the job, who got over and by the end of the year was the WWF's champion, 4 stars, and Mankind went to a double countout with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, 3 stars. WCW Bash at the Beach, July 13, Daytona Beach Ocean Center. Attendance, 7,851 sellout, 6,354 paid. Live Gate, $150,870. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.89 $2.79 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 149, 71.6%, 29, 13.9%, 30, 14.4%. Best match, Hector Garza and Juventud Guerrera and Liz Mark Jr. vs. La Parca and Psicosis and Villano 486, Ultimo Dragon vs. Chris Jericho 71. Worst match, Jeff Jarrett vs. Steve McMichael 57, Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman vs. Lex Luger and the Giant 36. Highlights: Lex Luger and the Giant beat Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman in 22:30 when Luger beat Hogan with the torture rack submission to set up their singles feud later in the year. After the match, Luger racked Rodman and also Randy Savage. While not a good wrestling match per se, it's far better than anyone had the right to expect considering the participants and had super heat, 1 1/2 star. In other top matches, Roddy Piper beat Ric Flair 3¼ stars in a surprisingly good match. Scott Hall and Randy Savage beat Diamond Dallas Page and debuting Curt Hennigan 9/35, 1/2 star. Jeff Jarrett kept the U.S. title beating Steve McMichael in 6:56. BUD Chris Benoit beat Kevin Sullivan in a loser must retire match in 13:10. 3½ stars. Rick and Scott Steiner earned a tag title shot beating Great Muta and Masahiro Chono in 11:37. 3¼ stars. Chris Jericho retained the WCW Cruiserweight title pinning Ultimo Dragon in 12:55, 4¼ stars. And a tremendous six-man saw Juventud Guerrera and Hector Garza and Liz Mark Jr. beat La Parca and Psicosis and Villano 4:10:08, 4¼ stars. UFC Showdown, July 27, Birmingham Jefferson County Civic Center. Attendance: Livegate Est. Buy rate/revenue 0.53/$850,000. Thumbs up/down/middle 110 90.9%, 5 4.1%, 6 5.0%. Best match: Mark Coleman vs. Maurice Smith 113. Worst match: Joe Moraire vs. Yuri Volin 49. Highlights: in UFC's most memorable match of the year, Maurice Smith captured the heavyweight title beating Mark Coleman in what was something of a title unification match with Smith holding the strap of defunct EFC. Up to that point it had been a night for the wrestlers, with Kevin Jackson winning the under 200-pound tournament with ease, and Mark Kerr capturing the heavyweight tournament with little competition. WWF SummerSlam, August 3, East Rutherford Continental Airlines Arena. Attendance: 20,213. Sellout: 17,361 paid. Livegate: $523,514. Est. Buy rate/revenue 0.8/$2.76 million. Thumbs up/down/middle 111, 45.3%, 107, 43.7%, 27, 11.0%. Best match: Bret Hart vs. Undertaker 99, Steve Austin vs. Owen Hart 57. Worst match: Los Boricuas vs. DOA 97, Legion of Doom vs. Godwins 37. Highlights: the injury to Steve Austin several minutes before the scheduled conclusion of an IC title match against Owen Hart, which Austin won at 16:16, took the luster away from one of the big shows of the year. 2¾ stars. In the main event, Bret Hart regained the WWF title from Undertaker when special ref Shawn Michaels hit Undertaker with a chair, thus turning heel, when Hart ducked in 28:09, 3 stars. In other key matches, Mankind beat Hunter Hearst Helmsley in a cage match in 16:25, 2½ stars, and Davey Boy Smith retained the European title beating Ken Shamrock via DQ in 7:29, 1¾ stars. WCW Road Wild, August 9, Sturgis Outdoors. Attendance: 6,500. Livegate: $0. Est. Buy rate/revenue 0.65/$2.09 million. Thumbs up/down/middle 86.0%, 119, 88.8%, 7, 5.2%. Best match: Alex Wright vs. Chris Jericho 35, Steiners vs. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash 10. Worst match: Hulk Hogan vs. Lex Luger 27, Diamond Dallas Page vs. Curt Hennig 13. Highlights: Hulk Hogan, who had lost the WCW title to Lex Luger 6 days earlier, regained due to Scott Hall as an imposter sting, hitting Luger with a baseball bat. Marcus Bagwell 6, Vincent and Kevin Nash all interfered as well in 16:15, 1/2 star. In a match that was originally to be a tag title change, but the finish was changed at the 11th hour, Steiners beat Kevin Nash and Scott Hall via DQ in 15:29, 1¾ stars, while Giant pinned Randy Savage in 6:05, 1 star. Curt Hennig beat Diamond Dallas Page in 9:41, 3/4 star. Ric Flair pinned Six in 11:06, 1¼ stars, and Alex Wright pinned Chris Jericho to keep the Cruiserweight title in 13:03, 3 stars. ECW Hardcore Heaven, August 17, Fort Lauderdale War Memorial Auditorium. Attendance: 1,950, 1,650 paid. Livegate: $60,000. Est. Buy rate/revenue 0.21/$325,000. Thumbs up/down/middle 104, 42.3%, 137, 55.7%, 5, 2.0%. Best match: Shane Douglas vs. Terry Funk vs. Sabu 97, Al Snow vs. Rob Van Dam 37. Worst match, Bam Bam Bigelow vs. Spike Dudley 53, Tommy Dreamer vs. Jerry Lawler 34. Highlights, in a night that for the most part didn't work, including one of the worst skits in recorded history where Sandman was drinking and driving an ambulance looking for the arena, Shane Douglas won a three-way dance over ECW champion Sabu and Terry Funk by pinning Funk in 26-37, 3.5 stars. In an interpromotional match, Tommy Dreamer pinned Jerry Lawler in 1857 with outside interference from Jake Roberts and Sonny among others, 1/2 star, and the Dudleys retained the ECW tag titles beating Page 13 in 10:58, 2 stars. WWF Ground Zero, September 7, Louisville Gardens. Attendance, 4,963. Sellout. Live gate, $82,228. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.45 $1.58 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 62 42.2%, 39 26.5%, 46 31.3%. Best match, Shawn Michaels vs. Undertaker 73, Bret Hart vs. Patriot 32. Worst match, Farouk vs. Crush vs. Savio Vega 84, Four Corners Tag Title Match 29. Highlights, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels battled to a no contest in 1603, although with the pre-match brawl it went closer to 23 minutes. In the main event, 3.75 stars, of a fairly forgettable show. Bret Hart retained the WWF title via submission over the Patriot with a sharpshooter in 1920, 3.25 stars, and Headbangers won the WWF tag titles in a Four Corners match over Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith, God Wins and Legion of Doom in an awful match, DUD. WCW Fall Brawl, September 14, Winston-Salem Lawrence Joel Coliseum. Attendance, 11,939. Sellout, 11,024 paid. Live gate, $213,330. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.53 $1.74 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 68 68.0%, 20 20.0%, 12 12.0%. Best match, Eddie Guerrero vs. Chris Jericho 41, Alex Wright vs. Ultimo Dragon 23. Worst match, Giant vs. Scott Norton 30, War Games 22. Highlights, Team NWO of Marcus Bagwell and Kevin Nash and Six and Conan beat Team Horsemen of Ric Flair and Chris Benoit and Steve McMichael, who were to team with Kurt Hennig, who did basically the same injury angle he did 1 year earlier in WWF with Hunter Hearst Helmsley to screw Mark Marrow, and ended up turning on Flair and the Horsemen, causing them to lose the War Games in 1937. 2.5 stars. The second half of the show was so-so, but the first half was tremendous. Lex Luger and Diamond Dallas Page beat Scott Hall and Randy Savage when Larry Zbyszko counted as Luger pinned Hall in 10:19, 2 stars. Giant pinned Scott Norton with a choke slam at 5:27. 1 star. Alex Wright kept the TV title pinning Ultimo Dragon in 1843, 3.5 stars. And Eddie Guerrero kept the Cruiserweight title beating Chris Jericho in 1719, 3.75 stars. WWF Bad Blood, October 5, St. Louis Kiel Center. Attendance, 21,151. Sellout, 17,404 paid. Live gate, $212,550. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.6 $2.11 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 72 49.7%, 34 23.4%, 39 26.9%. Best match, Shawn Michaels vs. Undertaker 119. Worst match, Los Boricuas vs. DOA 39. Headbangers vs. God Wins 31. Highlights, under the cloud of Brian Pillman's death a few hours earlier, WWF went on with the show with few highlights aside from arguably the greatest cage match in history where Shawn Michaels beat Undertaker in 29:59 due to interference from Kane to earn the next WWF title shot, 5-star, and a ceremony honoring former NWA champions like the Funks, Harley Race, Jack Briscoe, Gene Kiniski and Lou Thez, along with longtime St. Louis promoter Sam Mushnick. Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith beat what was advertised as a flag match, but the rules changed at the last minute to be a regular match over Vader and Patriot. In 23:13, Owen Hart won the vacant IC title in the tourney finals from Farouk in 7:12, and God Wins won the tag titles from Headbangers in 12:17, all of which were subdued at best performances. IWF presents The Contenders, October 11, Sioux City. Attendance, 250. Live gate. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.03 $72,000. Thumbs up / down / middle, 11, 14.1%, 56, 71.8%, 11, 14.1%. Best match, Frank Shamrock vs. Dan Henderson 37, Tom Erickson vs. Tsuyoshi Kikuchi 13. Worst match, Townsend Saunders vs. Andre Pedernarias 17, Dennis Hall vs. Joao Roque 9. Highlights, and a show which featured a tremendous caliber of athletes but a poor concept, John Peretti attempted to get stars of NHB through the pay-per-view censors that were destroying NHB by doing a submissions-only show between wrestlers and submission experts. The scoring rules were never explained. The matches, featuring no strikes and lots of defensive moves, were generally boring. Most of the wrestlers had trouble with the submission fights guards. The wrestling contingent was furious because the wrestlers, without the ability to strike and headbutt from the top, couldn't do much due to lack of submission skill. The jiu-jitsu contingent was furious because they thought the rules favored the wrestlers when it came to point systems. Nobody bought the show. And a few days later, this group was defunct. The star of the show was Frank Shamrock, who made two-time Olympic wrestler Dan Henderson submit in just 56 seconds to an ankle lock. Kenny Monday, one of the great wrestlers of his era, lost to an ankle lock in just 45 seconds against Matt Hume. Tom Erickson, America's best freestyle heavyweight, won via decision against Ring's Tsuyoshi Kikuchi. UFC Collision Course, October 17, Bay St. Louis Casino Magic. Attendance, 1,500 sellout. Live Gate. Est. Buy rate/revenue, 0.5/$708,000. Thumbs up/down/middle, 139, 96.5%, 2, 1.4%, 3, 2.1%. Best match, Vitor Belfort vs. Randy Couture 64, Carlisle Barreto vs. Dave Beneteau 50. Worst match, Mark Kerr vs. Gregory Stott 24, Mark Kerr vs. Dwayne Cason 23. Highlights, Randy Couture derailed Vitor Belfort in an upset in 8:17 is the biggest story of one of the best UFC shows in history. In the main event, Murray Smith made late out-of-shape replacement Tank Abbott quit due to leg kicks in 8:11 while Mark Kerr went to 7-0 and easily winning his second straight heavyweight tournament. UFC would end up losing Kerr due to legal problems after the show. The show also featured one of the closest and best UFC matches in history, with David Beneteau upsetting Carlisle Barreto via decision after 15 minutes. WCW Halloween Havoc, October 26, Las Vegas MGM Grand Garden Arena. Attendance, 12,457 sellout, 10,138 paid. Live Gate, $297,508. Est. Buy rate/revenue, 1.1/$3.62 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 90, 43.5%, 82, 39.6%, 35, 16.9%. Best match, Rey Mysterio Jr. vs. Eddie Guerrero 183, Randy Savage vs. Diamond Dallas Page 7. Worst match, Hulk Hogan vs. Roddy Piper 83, Alex Wright vs. Steve McMichael 37. Highlights, this show will best be remembered for the third match on the show, where Rey Mysterio Jr. won the Cruiserweight title from Eddie Guerrero in a match where he was originally scheduled to lose his mask in 13:51, 4 3/4 stars. Otherwise it was a lackluster show headed up by a main event that'll forever be known as the Age in the Cage match, where Roddy Piper won a poor non-title match over Hulk Hogan in 13:37, DUD. Randy Savage beat Diamond Dallas Page when Hogan, dressed as Sting, interfered in 18:07, 3 1/4 stars. Lex Luger beat Scott Hall in 13:02 with Larry Zbyszko as ref. WWF Survivor Series, November 9, Montreal Molson Center. Attendance, 20,593 sellout, 18,101 paid. Live Gate, $447,284 Canadian. Est. Buy rate/revenue, 0.89/$3.14 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 81, 35.8%, 87, 38.5%, 58, 25.7%. Best match, Bret Hart vs. Shawn Michaels 147, Kane vs. Mankind 23. Worst match, Truth Commission vs. DOA 77, Jesse Jams and Billy Gunn and Godwins vs. Headbangers and Blackjacks 55. Highlights, Shawn Michaels defeated Bret Hart to win the WWF title in 12:11 of the famous double-cross finish in the historical climax of the show, when Vince McMahon ordered ref Earl Hebner, a longtime close friend of Hart's, to call for the bell and rule it a submission without Hart's knowledge some 5 minutes before the match was scheduled to end. With Hart actually reversing the hold as the bell was called, a large percentage of fans watching realized it was all screwed up, 3 3/4 stars. That finish took all the attention away from the show, which included Steve Austin regaining the IC title from Owen Hart in 4:04 in a match well below par because both men were wrestling injured. 1 star, topping off a series of elimination tag team matches. WCW World War III, November 23, Auburn Hills, The Palace. Attendance, 17,128, 15,735 paid. Live gate, $395,831. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.56 $1.84 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 27, 21.1%, 87, 68.0%, 14, 10.9%. Best match, Eddie Guerrero vs. Rey Mysterio Jr. 77, Ric Flair vs. Curt Hennig 13. Worst match, Battle Royal 40, Alex Wright vs. Steve McMichael 38. Highlights, another poor show headlined by the annual 3-ring 60-man Battle Royal won by Scott Hall in 29:48. It was noteworthy as Battle Royal rules were changed from over-the-top eliminations to simply rolling someone under the ropes would be an elimination, 1/2 star, and for Hulk Hogan, who arrived unadvertised, and Kevin Nash, dressed as Sting, the highest paid performers on the show, both coming out only for the finish. Curt Hennig retained the U.S. title, pinning Ric Flair in 17:57, 2.5 stars. Eddie Guerrero retained the Cruiserweight title, pinning Rey Mysterio Jr. in 12:42, 4 stars. Steiners retained the WCW tag titles, beating Steven Regal and David Taylor in 9:45 when Rick pinned Regal after a sky-high bulldog, 2 stars, and Perry Saturn pinned Disco Inferno to retain the TV title in 8:19, 1/4 star. ECW November to Remember, November 30th, Monaco Golden Dome. Attendance, 4,634 sellout, 4,218 paid. Live gate, $103,900. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.20 $400,000. Thumbs up / down / middle, 71, 36.2%, 102, 52.0%, 23, 11.7%. Best match, Chris Candido and Lance Storm vs. Jerry Lynn and Tommy Rogers 36, Sabu vs. Sandman 32. Worst match, Sabu vs. Sandman 88 has vs. Pitbull number 232. Highlights, while ECW couldn't live up to its expectations and hype from previous years when it came to putting on better shows than its much larger opposition, this show clearly established them as a pay-per-view promotion for the long haul as they maintained their buy rate after a disastrous second show. Shane Douglas, in his hometown, regained the ECW title from Bam Bam Bigelow in 25:02 of a so-so match, 1 3/4 stars. Sabu pinned Sandman in 20:55 of a tables and ladders legal match that was among the worst matches of the decade, -3 1/2 stars. Tommy Dreamer went to a non-decision against Rob Van Dam in 16:02, 2 3/4 stars. Tracy Smothers and Little Guido retained the ECW tag titles in a 4 corners match, beating the Dudleys, Axel Rotten and Balls Mahoney and the Gangstonators, 1 1/2 star, while Taz beat Pitbull number 2 in 1:29 to retain the TV title, 1/2 star. WWF Generation X, Springfield Civic Center. Attendance, 6,358 sellout. Live gate, $112,864. Est. Buy rate / revenue, 0.40 $1.51 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 22, 17.2%, 96, 75.0%, 10, 7.8%. Best match, Taka Michinoku vs. Brian Christopher 83, Shawn Michaels vs. Ken Shamrock 26. Worst match, Sergeant Slaughter vs. Hunter Hearst Helmsley 60, Mark Marrow vs. Butterbean 44. Highlights, D-Generation X, in the spirit of the NWO, which the concept was a knockoff of, delivered its own poor show loaded with run-in DQ finishes and poor matches. In the main event, Shawn Michaels retained the WWF title, losing via run-in DQ to Ken Shamrock in 18:29, 3 stars. In a match he was asked and refused to drop the title in, Steve Austin retained the IC title, which he voluntarily vacated the next night by pinning Rocky Maivia in 5:12, 2 1/4 stars. In another of the series of worst matches of the year, Hunter Hearst Helmsley beat Sergeant Slaughter in a boot camp match in 17:39, -2 stars, while Billy Gunn and Jesse Jams retained the WWF tag titles, beating Legion of Doom via DQ in 10:33, EUD, in a work tough man match, Butterbean beat Mark Marrow via DQ at 10 or found 4 DUD, and Taka Michinoku became the first WWF light heavyweight champion actually recognized in the United States. Another version of the title had bounced around Japan and Mexico for 16 years, by pinning Brian Christopher in 12:02, 3 stars. WCW Starrcade 97, Washington MCI Arena. Attendance, 17,500 sellout, 16,052 paid. Live gate, $543,000. Est. Buy rate/revenue, 1.6/$5.58 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 26, 9.4%, 216, 78.0%, 35, 12.6%. Best match, Eddie Guerrero vs. Dean Malenko 138, Chris Benoit vs. Perry Saturn 19. Worst match, Bill Goldberg vs. Steve McMichael 69, Hulk Hogan vs. Sting 67. Highlights, the biggest money pay-per-view show in more than 5 years ended with Sting, having been held out of the ring for 16 months, returning to beat Hulk Hogan for the WCW title in 12:54 when Bret Hart, playing off the famous Survivor Series finish, punched ref Nick Patrick, who was supposed to have screwed Sting on the finish, and ruled Hogan submitted to a Scorpion Deathlock. Patrick was supposed to fast count as Hogan pinned Sting, however it was a normal count, making the heart attack of Patrick and taking over make little sense, 1/4 star. It was the climax of the biggest year in WCW history, but it was yet another poor show even without much of an undercard. In a match billed where Nitro was at stake, 44-year-old announcer Larry Zbyszko beat 41-year-old WCW President Eric Bischoff via DQ in 11:12 with Hart also as referee, 1/4 star. Diamond Dallas Page pinned Curt Hennig with a diamond cutter to win the U.S. title in 10:52, 2 stars. Eddie Guerrero retained the Cruiserweight title pinning Dean Malenko after a frog splash in 14:57, 2 3/4 stars. 1997 year-end tabulations. WWF. Total shows 12. Thumbs up shows 4. Thumbs down shows 1. In the middle shows 7. Average buy rate 0.61, minus 9.0%. Average revenue $1.84 million, plus 10.8%. WCW. Total shows 12. Thumbs up shows 4. Thumbs down shows 5. In the middle shows 3. Average buy rate 0.77, plus 20.3%. Average revenue $2.45 million, plus 36.1%. UFC. Total shows 5. Thumbs up shows 4. Thumbs down shows 1. In the middle shows 0. Average buy rate 0.52, minus 1.9%. Average revenue $838,000, minus 21.7%. ECW. Total shows 3. Thumbs up shows 1. Thumbs down shows 2. In the middle shows 0. Average buy rate 0.22. Average revenue $375,000. Major international events. NJPW 97 Wrestling World in Tokyo Dome, January 4, Tokyo Dome. Attendance, 62,500 sellout. Television rating, 11.3. Highlights in a show where the primary draw was the tradition of the 1/4 Big Show, Shinya Hashimoto retained the IWGP Heavyweight title pinning Riki Choshu in 1804 with a brainbuster DDT, 4 stars. The other 2 major titles changed hands, as Tatsumi Fujinami and Kengo Kimura, the first ever IWGP Tag Team Champions, having won the belts in 1985, regained them for the 4th time beating Masahiro Chono and Hiroyoshi Tenzan in 1610 when Fujinami made Chono submit to the Dragon Sleeper. Jushin Liger won the J Crown from WCW Cruiserweight Champion. The WCW title wasn't at stake in this match. Ultimo Dragon in 1821, 3 3/4 stars. Power Warrior, Kensuke Sasaki, pinned Great Muta in 1609, 3 1/4 stars. 53-year-old Antonio Inoki beat 48-year-old former karate star Willie Williams in a horrible match in 4:13 in the first meeting between the two since a legendary match in 1980, Minnesota Star. The undercard was mainly Big Japan versus New Japan matches, which New Japan winning all but one. A trivial note underneath is that Super Liger, Chris Jericho, debuted pinning Koji Kanemoto. This was supposed to set up Liger's main feud for 1997, however management decreed this idea didn't work. The match never even aired on television and Super Liger was never heard from again. Rings Battle Dimension Tournament Final, January 24, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance 11,800. Highlights: Volkan captured the tournament for the second time, previous win in 1994, beating Kiyoshi Tamura in 12:36 with an Achilles tendon submission, and in a surprise, Bitsade Terriel captured third place, beating Yoshihisa Yamamoto in 6:19. In what would prove to be an interest result with the year over, Akira Maeda in a worked match defeated EFC, and eventual UFC, champion Maurice Smith in 5:35. NJPW Tokyo Sumo Hall, February 16. Attendance: 11,000 sellout. Highlights: Shinya Hashimoto retained the IWGP Heavyweight title, beating Kazuo Yamazaki with a brainbuster in 1855, 3 stars. Tatsumi Fujinami and Kengo Kimura retained the IWGP Tag Team titles, beating Satoshi Kojima and Manabu Nakanishi in 1441, 2 1/4 stars. Great Muta pinned Shiro Koshinaka in 1243 with a moonsault, 2 1/2 stars. Jushin Liger retained the J Crown, pinning Koji Kanemoto in 1926, 4 3/4 stars. All Japan Budokan Hall, March 1. Attendance: 16,300 sellout. Highlights: Mitsuharu Misawa retained the Triple Crown, pinning Steve Williams in 27:52, 3 1/4 stars, and Akira Tao and Toshiaki Kawada retained the double tag team titles, beating Gary Albright and future Kingdom wrestler Yoshihiro Takayama in 1412 when Kawada made Takayama submit to the stretch plum, 1 3/4 stars. The Misawa-Williams match was also a high-water mark for the company, doing a 5.0 rating in the post-midnight Sunday time slot. All Japan Women Wrestling Queendom 97, March 23, Yokohama Arena. Attendance: 5,000. Highlights: a disappointing crowd turned out to see Kyoko Inoue retain her own newly created Triple Crown of the WWWA World Title, the All-Pacific title and the EVA World Title, pinning Asia Kong in 29:29, 3 1/2 stars. Tomoko Watanabe and Kumiko Makawa retained the WWWA Tag titles, beating Takako Inoue and Mariko Yoshida in 28 minutes, 3 3/4 stars, and Kaoru Ito pinned Manami Toyota in 29:29 to earn a future Triple Crown title shot. Rings, March 28, Tokyo Bay NK Hall. Attendance: 6,872 sellout. Highlights: in the first meeting between the biggest name of the past in the promotion, Akira Maeda, and his apparent successor by year's end in the main event slot, Kiyoshi Tamura, Maeda won with a choke sleeper in 7:54. The two actually had wrestled many years earlier in Tamura's first pro match, where Maeda had scored a win in the old UWF promotion. New Japan, April 12, Tokyo Dome. Attendance: 50,000, heavily papered. Television rating: 10.3. Highlights: of a show that was added to the schedule when New Japan thought it had a deal for a Shinya Hashimoto vs. Ken Shamrock match, which would have been an easy sellout. When Shamrock pulled out to join the WWF, New Japan moved Naoya Ogawa, a 3-time former world heavyweight champion in judo who was to debut on the card, into the main event against Hashimoto, and to create him as a superstar, put him over in a non-title match in 9:25, 2 1/4 stars. Riki Choshu and Kensuke Sasaki won the IWGP Tag Team titles from Tatsumi Fujinami and Kengo Kimura in 15:39, 2 1/4 stars. Great Muta pinned Masahiro Chono in 14:09, but after the match the two shook hands, continuing a long storyline that resulted in Muta joining the NWO, 1 1/2 star. Antonio Inoki beat Tiger King Satoru Sayama in 6:46 with a Cobra Twist submission, 1 star. Jushin Liger retained the J Crown, beating Great Sasuke in 20:08, 3 3/4 stars. All Japan Champion Carnival Finals, April 19, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance: 16,300 sellout. Highlights: Toshiaki Kawada won the Champion Carnival in only the second gimmick match in the history of the All Japan promotion, the other being a Giant Baba vs. Fritz von Erich death match in 1975. Mitsuharu Misawa, Kawada and Kena Kobashi all finished the round robin with 19 points, with Kawada going 8,1 and 3, Kobashi going 9,2 and 1 and Misawa going 9,2 and 1. First, Misawa and Kobashi went to a 30-minute draw in a classic match, 4 1/2 stars, followed by Kawada scoring his first pinfall victory of his career in a singles match against the tired Misawa in 6:09, 3 3/4 stars. Kobashi vs. Kawada followed, with Kawada winning that match as well in 21:27 of a match below par for the 2, 3 3/4 stars. Pancrase, April 27, Tokyo Bay NK Hall. Attendance: 7,000 sellout. Highlights: Yuki Kondo, 21, after just 15 months as a pro wrestler, became the youngest ever king of Pancrase, beating Masakatsu Funaki in 15:12. Paul Verhoeven's of same UFC infamy made his only pancrase show of the year, losing 4-1 to Ryushi Yanagisawa after they went 15 minutes. Noted traditional style pro wrestler Taka Michinoku made his first and only shoot match, losing to Keiichiro Yamamiya and 7:36 to an armlock. Boss Ruden beat Kyuma Kunyoku by a 1-0 score after the two went the time limit. FMW Anniversary Show, April 29, Yokohama Arena. Attendance, 16,000. Sellout. Highlights: Megumi Kudo, 27, in her final match of her career captured both the WWA World Championship and Independent Women's Championship, beating Shark Tsuchiya in 21:46 in an explosive barbed wire match. In the other key match on the show, Atsushi Onita and Masato Tanaka and Wing Kanemaru beat Terry Funk and the Gladiator and Cactus Jack in 2020 when Kanemaru pinned Gladiator. New Japan Strong Style Evolution, May 3, Osaka Dome. Attendance, 53,000. Sellout. Highlights: the first pro wrestling show at the Osaka Dome was a show more notable for the crowd and having top WCW than for anything in the ring. Main event saw Shinya Hashimoto avenge his defeat from a few weeks earlier and beat Naoya Ogawa in 10:20 to retain the IWGP Heavyweight title after a series of savage kicks when Tiger King threw in the towel. 3.25 stars. Satoshi Kojima and Manabu Nakanishi surprisingly captured the IWGP Tag Team from Riki Choshu and Kensuke Sasaki at 11:34 when Kojima used a Dragon Sleeper on Choshu. 3.25 stars. Antonio Inoki and Tiger King beat Jushin Liger and Yoshiaki Fujiwara in 10:42 with Inoki beating Fujiwara with a choke sleeper. 2.5 stars. In matches involving WCW talent, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Masahiro Chono beat Steiners and Keiji Muto. 2 stars. Marcus Bagwell and Scott Norton upset Lex Luger and the Giant due to outside help from Hiroyoshi Tenzan. 1/2 star. And NWO Sting and Six beat Tadaya Suda and Takashi Iizuka. 1.5 star. The best match on the show was a best-of-3 fall opener in which Koji Kanemoto and Shinjiro Otani and Dick Togo and Men's Teo and Hanzo Nakajima won 2 straight falls from Super Delphin at Gran Hamada and Great Sasuke and Norio Oniga and El Samurai in 21:11. 4 stars. However, that combination New Japan vets and Michinoku faces versus New Japan Young Juniors and Michinoku heels never got off the ground as political problems from WCW stemming from Great Sasuke and Taka Michinoku working for WWF later in the year ended the New Japan/Michinoku business relationship. A shockingly good match saw Shiro Koshinaka beat former tag partner Kengo Kimura in 13:34, 3.75 stars. New Japan, June 5, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance, 14,000. Highlights: in a head-to-head battle between All Japan and New Japan in All Japan's traditional Big Show arena, New Japan came up just short of a sellout for a match where Shinya Hashimoto retained the IWGP Heavyweight title, beating Keiji Muto on 26:01 after 2 DDTs. 3.5 stars. In a match of the year candidate and the match in which Koji Kanemoto opened up everyone's eyes as to his standing as one of the best all-around workers in the business, the finals of the top of the Super Junior tournament saw El Samurai pin Kanemoto in 23:51. 5 stars. Satoshi Kojima and Manabu Nakanishi retained the IWGP Tag Team titles, beating NWO Sting and Masahiro Chono in 14:15. 2.75 stars. In other top bouts, in a rematch of a famous feud from 14 years earlier, Tiger King, Satoru Sayama, beat Kunyaki Kobayashi. 1/2 star, and an 8-man tag saw Grand Naniwa and Dr. Wagner Jr. and Chris Jericho and Jushin Liger beat Shinjiro Otani, and Hanzo Nakajima and Yoshihiro Tajiri and Tatsuhito Takaiwa. 4 stars. All Japan, June 6, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance, 16,300. Sellout. Highlights: coming off his win in the Champion Carnival, Toshiaki Kawada challenged Mitsuharu Misawa for the Triple Crown, with Misawa winning in 31-22 in another strong match of the year candidate. 5 stars. The semifinal saw Kenta Kobashi and Johnny Ace and the Patriot debut as the Get Trio, beating Steve Williams and Gary Albright and the Lacrosse in 22 minutes. 2.25 stars. However, Patriot then quit the promotion to join WWF, and the trio ended just after the big push began. New Japan, July 6, Sapporo Makomanai Ice Arena. Attendance, 10,000. Sellout. Highlights: New Japan's first show at the new building in Sapporo was a big success, with Riki Choshu and Shinya Hashimoto beating Keiji Muto and Masahiro Chono in 12:39 when Choshu pinned Chono. 3.25 stars. El Samurai captured the J-Crown, pinning Jushin Liger in 1940. All Japan, July 25, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance, 16,300. Sellout. Highlights: Mitsuharu Misawa retained the Triple Crown, pinning Akira Tao in 2025 in a great match. 4.25 stars. and in the promotion's worst major match of not only the year but the entire decade, Steve Williams and Gary Albright captured the double tag team titles, beating Kenta Kobashi and Johnny Ace in 29-36 when Williams pinned Kobashi. DUD. New Japan G1 Climax Tournament, August 1/2/3 Tokyo Sumo Hall. Attendance, 10,500 11,000 sellout 11,000 sellout. Highlights: Kensuke Sasaki began his unbelievable August push, winning the G1 Climax Tournament one day before his 31st birthday, pinning Hiroyoshi Tenzan, who turned in a career performance despite suffering a severe knee injury before the finals in 8:09, 3 3/4 stars. Masahiro Chono was also injured in the tournament, forcing him to cancel his main event 1 week later against Shinya Hashimoto for the IWGP title at the first Nagoya Dome show. On August 2, Don Frye, a UFC superstar and 1996 Ultimate Champion, made his Major League Pro Wrestling debut, beating Kazuyuki Fujita in a surprisingly good match, 2.5 stars. New Japan 4 Heaven in Nagoya Dome, August 10. Attendance, 43,500 sellout. Highlights: Shinya Hashimoto retained the IWGP Heavyweight title, pinning Hiroyoshi Tenzan in 1709 with a DDT in a brutal main event on the first pro wrestling event ever at the new Nagoya Dome, 3.5 stars. Great Muta used the green mist to beat Naoya Ogawa in 6:39 1/2 star. Kazuo Yamazaki and Kensuke Sasaki, continually his August wins, captured the IWGP Tag Team titles from Satoshi Kojima and Manabu Nakanishi in 12:31 when Sasaki pinned Nakanishi with his Northern Lights bomb, 3 stars. Tatsumi Fujinami pinned Riki Choshu in 6:48 in what was billed as their final singles match ever, 1.5 star. Don Frye beat Cal Worsham in a work UFC style match, 1/2 star. Shinjiro Otani won the J-Crown, pinning El Samurai in 18:05, 4 stars, and Koji Kanemoto pinned Jushin Liger in 21:51. New Japan Final Power Hall, August 31, Yokohama Arena. Attendance, 18,000 sellout. Highlights: New Japan ended arguably the biggest month in history for any promotion, following a sold-out Nagoya Dome and successful G1 with a nearly $2 million house celebrating the impending retirement of Riki Choshu. Choshu's protege, Kensuke Sasaki, completed his own Triple Crown during the month, beating Shinya Hashimoto to win the IWGP Heavyweight title with a Northern Lights bomb in 16:54 of a disappointing main event, 2.25 stars. In the other top match, Choshu and Genichiro Tenryu and Tatsumi Fujinami beat Great Muta and Hiroyoshi Tenzan and Hiro Saito in 8:56 when Choshu pinned Saito with a lariat, 1 star. Among those honoring Choshu after the show were Tenryu, Fujinami, Akira Maeda, making his first appearance at a New Japan show in 10 years, longtime tag team partner Animal Hamaguchi, his daughter World Freestyle Champion Kyoko Hamaguchi, and of course, Antonio Inoki. In other top matches, Naoya Ogawa beat Scott Norton in 6:25. DUD Shinjiro Otani retained the J-Crown, beating Koji Kanemoto via submission with the Dragon Sleeper in 2020, 3 3/4 stars, and Jushin Liger pinned Tatsuhito Takaiwa in 17 minutes. All Japan, September 6, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance, 16,300 sellout. Highlights: in an excellently worked match but somewhat taken down by the lack of heat, Mitsuharu Misawa retained the Triple Crown, pinning Jun Akiyama in 24:57 using a Tiger Driver, 4 stars. In the other top matches, Steve Williams and Gary Albright and Yoshihiro Takayama beat Tamon Honda and Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao in 17:30, 2 stars, and Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki of FMW beat Kenta Kobashi and Kentaro Shiga in 20:32, 3.5 stars. WWF One Night Only, September 20, Birmingham, England NEC Arena. Attendance, 11,000 sellout. Highlights: Shawn Michaels captured the European title from Davey Boy Smith in 24 minutes with outside interference from Rick Rude, China and Hunter Hearst Helmsley on the first WWF pay-per-view show in England. All North American-based WWF pay-per-view shows air in England on free television. Bulldog was originally scheduled to win the belt via pinfall, but when Michaels refused to put Bulldog over, the finish was changed to build for a future rematch where Michaels would lose that of course never was going to take place. In a match where the crowd reaction was split, more in favor of Undertaker, Bret Hart retained the title, winning via DQ when Undertaker refused to stop choking and punching Hart on the ropes in 28 minutes. Ed Bangers retained the WWF tag titles, beating Savio Vega and Miguel Perez in 14 minutes. Due to disputes and negotiations with the leading cable companies, the show wasn't cleared in much of England, and overall reports are that in the places it was cleared its buy rate was disappointing, well below the level of major boxing events. New Japan, September 23, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance, 12,800. Highlights: It was a show based around wrestlers against UFC fighters as New Japan's Shinya Hashimoto beat Zane Frazier, a Vale Tudo veteran of matches in the US, Brazil and Japan, including a KO win within seconds in a shoot match against Kendo Nagasaki at 105 of the third round. 1/4 star. Naoya Ogawa beat Brian Johnston in 11-14, 1/4 star in the latter's pro wrestling debut, and Don Frye won his rematch against former national freestyle champion and New Japan rookie star Kazuyuki Fujita in 6:02, 2 1/4 stars. In the pro wrestling matches on the show, Great Muta and Masahiro Chono defeated IWGP Tag Team Champions Kensuke Sasaki and Kazuo Yamazaki in a non-title match when Muta walked out and Keiji Muto returned, but then joined the NWO and pinned Sasaki after a moonsault in 17:30, 1 1/2 star, and Shinjiro Otani retained the J-Crown, pinning Tatsuhito Takaiwa. FMW Kawasaki Baseball Stadium, September 28. Attendance, 40,000. Highlights: Atsushi Onita pinned Wing Kanemura in 17:41 of a disappointing no-rope barbed wire electrified dynamite land mines time bomb death match. In apparently one of the great tag matches of all time, Kenta Kobashi and Monokiya Mossman of All Japan beat Jinsei Shinzaki and Hayabusa from FMW in 21:30. Masato Tanaka won both the independent and brass knucks titles from the Gladiator in another great match. Bader beat Ken Shamrock in a UFC rules cage match, in a match Shamrock was scheduled to lose. However, the finish came early at 7:17 because Shamrock began coughing up blood from a previous injury. In other key matches, Terry Funk retained the so-called NWA Texas Heavyweight title, pinning Hiromichi Fuyuki in 12:23. Shark Tsuchiya won the vacant WWA and Independent Women's titles, pinning Asia Kong in 18:25, and Mr. Ganasuke and Hisakatsu Oya retained the FMW World Brass Knucks Tag titles, beating Gedo and Jado in 15:02. Michinoku Pro Anniversary Show, October 10, Tokyo Sumo Hall. Attendance, 6,000. Highlights: a solid, very good show climaxed with Great Sasuke pinning Taka Michinoku in 28-12 with a German suplex, 3 3/4 stars. The basic Michinoku-style six-man tag saw Super Delphin and Naohiro Hoshikawa and Masato Yakashiji beat Dick Togo and Men's Teo and Shoichi Funaki in 18:44, 4 1/4 stars, while Undertaker was brought in for a match with Jinsei Shinzaki, with Undertaker going over in 12:08, 1 star, and the original Tiger Mask, without the Hood Wrestling as Satoru Sayama, beat 1979-1980 Mexican rival El Satanico in 6:38 with an armbreaker, 1 1/2 star. KRS Pride 1, October 11, Tokyo Dome. Attendance, 37,000, 30,000 paid. Buy rate, 8.0. Highlights: a poor show ending with the funeral of mythical shooting legend Nobuhiko Takada as he was easily handled by Hickson Gracie, losing to an armbar in just 4:47. Dan Severn and Kimo went to a boring 30-minute draw in which Severn would have won the match on points, but both men's reputations as shooters in Japan was damaged in the process, while unheralded Akira Shoji held Henzo Gracie to a 30-minute draw in a match that Shoji probably would have garnered had there been judges, although it was a close match and the best match on the show, which included at least a few worked matches. All Japan 25th Anniversary Show, October 21, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance, 16,300 sellout. Highlights: Mitsuharu Misawa retained his Triple Crown, beating Kenta Kobashi in 32:55 of another match of the year type performance, 4 1/2 stars. In perhaps his worst major singles match of his career, Toshiaki Kawada pinned Yoshihiro Takayama in 18:22 DUD, while Akira Tao pinned Johnny Ace in 16:54, 3 3/4 stars. New Japan Final Power Hall in Fukuoka Dome, November 2. Attendance, 40,000. Highlights: a largely disappointing show with the exception of some of the junior heavyweight matches. The main event was anticlimactic, with IWGP Tag Team Champions Keiji Muto and Masahiro Chono beating Tatsumi Fujinami and Genichiro Tenryu in 21:33 when Chono made Fujinami submit to the STF, 1 3/4 stars. Shinya Hashimoto beat former K1 and Vale Tudo competitor Hubert Nummerch of Germany with a facelock in 1:04 of the second round, 1 star. In the actual top-drawing match on the show, IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kensuke Sasaki scored his first singles victory of his career against mentor Riki Choshu in 11:34 using Choshu's lariat as the finisher, 2 1/4 stars. In other mixed matches, Naoya Ogawa beat Holland kickboxer Erwin Vrieker in 3:19 of a terrible match, Minnesota in 1/2 star, and Don Frye beat Kazuo Yamazaki in 12:21, 2 1/2 stars. Shinjiro Otani retained the J-Crown, pinning Wild Pegasus, Chris Benoit, in 1928 in easily the best match on the show, 4 1/4 stars. The other strong juniors match saw the first ever teaming of the two biggest junior heavyweight stars of the modern era, Tiger King and Jushin Liger as they beat Koji Kanemoto and Tatsuhiro Takaiwa in 14-18 when Liger pinned Takaiwa after a Super Fisherman Buster, 3 3/4 stars. All Japan Real World Tag League Tournament Finals, December 5, Tokyo Budokan Hall. Attendance, 15,500. Highlights: Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao won the tournament for the second consecutive year, once again beating Mitsuharu Masawa and Jun Akiyama in the finals at 30-52 when Tao pinned Akiyama after a high kick in an early candidate for next year's Match of the Year, 5-star star. To create a rematch of the 1996 final match, also a Match of the Year caliber event, both teams were 7-1 and 1 in the round robin, finishing ahead of Gary Albright and Steve Williams and Kenta Kobashi and Johnny Ace, who tied for third with 6-1 and 2 records. New Japan Supergrade Tag League Tournament Finals, December 8, Osaka Furitsu Gym. Attendance, 6,500 sellout. Highlights: IWGP Tag Team Champions Keiji Muto and Masahiro Chono captured the tournament beating Shinya Hashimoto and Manabu Nakanishi in 23-33 when Muto made Hashimoto submit to the figure 4 leg lock, 4 stars. Hashimoto and Nakanishi made it to the finals beating Kazuo Yamazaki and Kensuke Sasaki in 15-24 when Hashimoto made Yamazaki submit to a Fujiwara armbar as both teams tied for second place at 5-2 records during the round robin, 3 3/4 stars. Shinjiro Otani retained the J-Crown pinning Kendo Kashin after a dragon suplex in 14-16, 4 stars. Pancrase, December 20, Yokohama Bunka Gym. Attendance, 5,500 sellout. Highlights: Masakatsu Funaki won the King of Pancrase title for a second time beating protege Yuki Kondo with an armbar in 2:20. NHB star Igor Zinoviev made his Pancrase debut going to a 13-minute draw with Asami Shibuya, but suffering a cracked right wrist in the process. UFC Ultimate Japan, December 21, Yokohama Arena. Attendance, 5,000, heavily papered. Est. Y rate. Thumbs up / down / middle, 31, 28.2%, 56, 50.9%, 23, 20.9%. Best match: Conan Silveira vs. Kazushi Sakuraba 29, Frank Shamrock vs. Kevin Jackson 14. Worst match: Vitor Belfort vs. Joe Charles 32, Maurice Smith vs. Randy Couture 9. Highlights: arguably UFC's weakest show to date viewed by its largest audience with network television coverage in Japan, but overall a live promotional flop with heavy papering. Randy Couture captured the UFC heavyweight title beating Maurice Smith via decision after the 21-minute time limit expired, with neither man seriously damaging the other but Couture having more control and more aggressiveness. Frank Shamrock became the UFC's first under 200 champion beating Kevin Jackson in just 14 with an armbar. Kazushi Sakuraba, a pro wrestler from the Kingdom promotion, won the UFC's weirdest tournament to date beating Conan Silveira in 3:45 after the two had a match earlier in the show that Silveira initially won via ref stop, but it was then overruled. In one of the most controversial fights in UFC history, boxer Vitor Belfort didn't throw a punch the entire fight in beating hand-picked opponent Joe Charles in 4:04 with an armbar. Here and there was an amazing skit/interview in the ring that lasted more than 30 minutes at the All Pro Wrestling Show on January 3 in Hayward, California. Aaron O'Grady, who worked a few shows for ECW before returning, was in the ring explaining his side of why he left. He had developed heat with certain people in ECW, he believed, over not helping set up chairs and the ring at certain shows, including the pay-per-view show on November 30, and ended up running afoul of Taz and being banned from the dojo for 30 days. O'Grady explained that in ECW, Bubba Ray Dudley treated him like he was green even though he actually had his first pro match in 1989, although he's never wrestled with a full-time promotion, just working indies in mainly Northern California for the likes of Woody Farmer, Paul Brown and Roland Alexander. He said he had made a deal with ECW which didn't include being on the ring crew. He had asked before he came in if he could join the ring crew since several of the undercard wrestlers like Spike Dudley, Mikey Whipwreck, who heads up the ring crew, and Chris Chetty make extra money setting up the ring, and he was friends with Spike. The general reason he was brought in was to be a smaller wrestler who could work a high-flying program with Spike, who before the injury to John Cronus, had no real program in ECW. He was told since there were guys in the school that had been waiting for a spot to open on the ring crew, it would be unfair for him to get the spot. But he was told he could travel with the ring crew so he could save on trans to the shows, and to save on rent he was allowed to park his motor home in the parking lot of the dojo. His side of not helping set up the rings is because he was specifically told he wasn't on the ring crew and he was told he was there to be a wrestler. He did admit the night before the pay-per-view in Monaca, Pennsylvania, he traveled with the ring crew to the show, and they were under the impression they weren't going to set the ring up until the next day. They all partied and he admitted he got drunk and passed out, and at that point Taz said there had been a change in plans and they wanted the ring set up that night and he'd passed out so it didn't help. Taz, who was instrumental in having him come in to begin with, apparently was upset by this and banned him from the dojo and banned him from traveling to shows with the ring crew. There were other negative situations described in the interview, including them saying that O'Grady earned about the same per match in ECW as he did in APW. While this was going on, the ECW theme music played and the lights went out. When they came on, Michael Modest, who was the top wrestler in the promotion, came out with a towel on his head, singlet, etc. to be like Taz. What was amazing about this skit is that he did a dead-on voice and mannerisms imitation of Taz. Later another wrestler, Donovan Morgan, came out with a pillow in his belly and another pillow in his butt, walking around on bad knees as Mikey Whipwreck, and a third guy who I don't know who was about 6'3" dressed up as Dudley, although they just had him stutter rather than talk. They did a skit that was hilarious at times. Modest's imitation of Taz was a far superior acting job to the Kevin Nash deal about Arnold Anderson. They basically portrayed a situation where Taz, Whipwreck and Dudley tried to bully O'Grady into leaving, with Taz saying he couldn't fire him, but hinted that bad things could happen if he stayed, and basically challenged O'Grady to shoot with him, Whipwreck or Dudley on the spot. O'Grady, who himself was a lot more political and low-key than most situations where they do shoot or work to shoot interviews/angles nowadays, in that he could have been a lot more negative about his stay in ECW to get himself over, but didn't knock the promotion and said he enjoyed the actual in-ring wrestling there, but also said he'd never go back, said he only had problems with 3 people. ECW ventured into the Detroit and Indianapolis market over the weekend, drawing about 600 fans into an 800-seat building on January 2nd in Inkster, Michigan, and packing the 1,000-seat Tyndall Armory in Indianapolis on January 4th. The Indianapolis show was said to have been one of the best ECW shows in a long time, with super crowd heat, said to be similar to the last show in Queens, New York, to the point Paul Heyman is considering Indy for a future pay-per-view site provided they can find a 2,500-seat building in the market. Plans right now for the 3-1 show are that it'll probably end at the Dunn Center in Elizabeth, New Jersey, but that Indianapolis is being considered as a possible backup choice, as far as Cincinnati and Dayton. Sabu beating Sandman headlined both shows with an Arabian facebuster using the ladder off the top rope. This week's television was built around the Japan tour, featuring Atsushi Onita, the Gladiator, Wayne Kanemura, and Masato Tanaka, along with the ECW regulars. They showed clips both from matches from that week, but also clips of things like Gladiator vs. Tanaka and Onita vs. Kanemura from Kawasaki Stadium, building up to the big explosion at the 15-minute mark of the match to set the stage for an explosive bomb match for pay-per-view this summer. They showed lots of clips, but the only match featured was Sabu vs. Sandman from Korakuen Hall. It was a lot better than the pay-per-view match, although still really sloppy. They changed camera shots whenever they were going off the ropes, and you could hear people laugh at missed spots, but you couldn't actually see those spots. Overall, the crowd at Korakuen Hall was into the match and the ECW gimmicks. Dreamer did a fantastic interview regarding Terry Funk, almost as a farewell to Funk, and that he's now going on his own since Funk has left for WWF. Chris Condito was on the road but didn't wrestle over the weekend due to a partially torn bicep. 1/10 at ECW Arena will include Great Sasuke vs. Justin Credible, Dudleys, including Big Dick, vs. New Jack and Spike Dudley and John Kronus, and a gimmick match with Sabu vs. Sandman. Men's Teo won't be coming, so Gran Hamada will probably wrestle another MPW in from Japan. They had a match considered between Venom Black from Promo Azteca vs. Super Crazy, but Paul Heyman felt that since the fans didn't know either of them, they wouldn't give them a chance, so it's likely Crazy will wrestle on the show and save Venom for a future debut. Phil LaFon missed the weekend due to a shoulder injury, but Doug Furness worked both nights. LaFon will probably be back in a week or two. Bam Bam Bigelow and John Kronus returned this week. Nicole Bass didn't work the weekend shows but will be doing the Stern show soon. Shane Douglas will probably not be back in the ring until February. As far as the pay-per-view show itself, the original plan was a 3-way dance for the title with Douglas, Tommy Dreamer, and Stevie Richards, but that's out the window as Richards' career looks to be over after neck surgery. There is some talk of doing a Dreamer vs. Rob Van Dam match with